What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, recording tonight off the back of a very disappointing loss to the Carlton Football Club. Of course, they'd won 2 in a row, and everyone had been talking about, but they've won 4 of their last 15, and those two games were those two teams were North Melbourne and West Coast twice. Geelong shouldn't have anything to worry about. Well, that overconfidence came back to bite us on the arse a little bit, because the final scores read: Carlton 14-10-94, beating the Cats 12-4-76. And while we were woefully inefficient in other parts of the ground, goal kicking efficiency is the only thing that kept us in this game, because Carlton really could have and should have won by a lot more than they actually did. We're going to go through everything from this game, how it all played out, the pros, the cons, the injuries, the subs, the debutant, all of it in this reaction video today. But overall, it's been a pretty disappointing experience. We're going to get to all of that in a second, though, after a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, let's get into the game a little bit here. We'll start to pick through the worm. We'll talk about what happened, what positives there were to find. Not many of them, but we'll pick through all of it in this video. So let's first take a look at the game as it played out. And you can see we're on top early. We had that little bit of early ascendancy and things were traveling all right. And then it blew out in that second quarter and there was no getting it back. You can see, this second quarter in particular, you can see it actually, the beginning of the third, the beginning of the fourth, Geelong tried to wrestle momentum back and it was tracking okay. And then in a way that Geelong has been incapable of doing all year, Carlton wrestled back the momentum on multiple occasions, and a massive, massive credit must be given to the Carlton Football Club. I'm sure there's plenty of Carlton supporters who found this video and they're keen to see if I'm going to spit the dummy like most losing supporters do. No, sorry, that's not happening. Congratulations on the win. It was a really good performance from your team. And I think the thing that impressed me most was that ability to regain control of the game when it looked like Geelong was about to assert itself and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. You can see it at the beginning of the third. You can see it at the beginning of the fourth. And Geelong had momentum in the fourth in particular for a bit longer, but Carlton did enough. They'd get a rebounding goal like the one here to Harry Mackay, or again late to George Hewitt, just to keep Geelong at arm's reach the whole time. A massive credit must be given to the Carlton Football Club and the way they played, just as much as, if we kind of shift a little bit to the pouting supporter mode, just as much as we should be having a crack at Geelong and the performance they put up for the night. So let's move over to some team stats here and talk about the tail of the tape, what this data can tell us a little bit about the game, match that with the eye test as much as possible. As you can see, and again, not surprising, we say this every single week, Geelong, they're not a high possession team. That doesn't necessarily tell us a great deal from what we're seeing here, outside of this absolutely abysmal measure of data here at the bottom. The inside 50, 63-44. They kept pumping that ball inside 50, but they were doing so with some consideration. Now, we defended well. We tried. Our defensive unit fought long and hard and kept us in it, really. Like, they were the reason that we even had a chance of winning this game, if I'm being perfectly honest, because the other 2/3 of the ground, it was pretty ugly. The inside 50s, they dominated. Disposal efficiency, they were much better. We were woeful in that respect. I've said it time and time again that Geelong kills you with efficiency. If the efficiency is not there, be it because there's pressure, perceived or real or whatever, we're done. So our efficiency was down, not drastically unusual, but it was down. Carlton's was well and truly up, and they had their way with us. You can see the efficiency inside 50 is favoured towards Geelong. Well, we didn't get the ball in there very much, did we? So it wasn't great in that respect. The free kicks, I know there's a lot that will be said about the free kicks. Yes, I think there was some horrific umpiring over the course of the night, but no, it's not the reason why we lost. It might have made it a little bit closer, and certainly I think we absolutely got screwed on many, many occasions, and I think those umpires do need to get some feedback, I suppose. But it's not why we lost. We created a rod for our own backs. The umpiring just didn't help. The hitouts, I was pretty happy with what Reece Stanley offered, but Tom de Koning did get the better of him. He's been the informed ruckman of the competition so far this season, continued in that respect. I am absolutely stunned. This is the first time I've looked at these numbers. I'm absolutely stunned by the fact that we won centre clearance. We were getting pulverized out of there, as far as I remember. So was it just the last quarter that kind of squared the ledger back up and twisted in our favour? Because normally this is actually the reverse. Normally we lose the centre clearances, but win the stoppage clearances around the ground when we can get more troops around. So for this to swing the way it has is actually really quite surprising to me. Because, and also, like, for me, looking at centre, like, our midfield was awful. We were awful through the midfield tonight. I'm shocked it's as close as it is, and when it comes to the centre clearances, that we actually won it. But anyway, possession, again, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Turnovers, that links to some of the disposal efficiency I was talking about before. The way Geelong disposed of the ball was very similar to the way Hawthorn did against us only 5 or 6 days before. At critical points, we fumbled it. And sometimes we actually genuinely fumbled it, but we'd fire out a handball that sailed over the person's head or would miss a target. We'd kick the ball and it'd sail just over their head as well. Our disposal, like the critical possessions, the critical disposals that must hit a target, we failed to do so. Outside of in the defensive half. And even then there was a few mistakes, but they were under siege. The midfield couldn't hit a target for the night, and the forwards weren't much better. And so outside of when they were going for goal, of course, 12 goals for. We shot ourselves in the foot time and time again. And maybe this is just one of those days. I hope that it's just one of those days. But bad kicking, bad disposals, bad football. Sometimes that's in front of the sticks. Sometimes that is everywhere else. And it's everywhere else that got us in this particular matchup. Congratulations to Carlton. You outplayed us in every respect. And you can see, like, possession, they just had the ball so much more than us. There's the marking for it. Like, we couldn't wrestle the ball back. Marks inside 50, they perform really well in that area. Contested marks, they perform really well in that area. We are depleted in some of those areas, but we're not in others. We just couldn't put anything together. Surprised that the tackle pressure is what it is. Very, very poor, the tackles inside 50 for the Cats. That is a very un-Geelong-like figure. I'm shocked that's as low as it is. But we our forwards they weren't firing. And we let the ball fly in and out with ease. And the rest of the stats don't really matter. So let's move over to some player figures here. Geez, I can really hear it in my tone that I feel I sound really flat. I am going to talk about the Carlton ones. I normally skip over the opposition players, but I do want to actually go back to that because I think it kind of links in with the performance of the Cats here. Bailey Smith and Sean Manor getting a lot of the ball. Bailey Smith kind of butchered it a bit at different points. Sean Manor was just fighting all day and, probably our best player with 7 clearances and 11 tackles on top of those 26 disposals. That effort against Hawthorn last week has really sparked his season. It was great to see. Would have been great to see him get on the scoreboard as well, just to, I think, really help lift the team with the way they were going. But you can't do everything, right? Lawson Humphreys, and we would be nowhere in this game if it weren't for Lawson Humphreys and Connor O'Sullivan in particular, who stopped so many forward thrusts from Carlton, especially in the first half, when things were, especially in that second quarter, in particular, when things were really trending against us. They held up incredibly well, and it should not be down to blokes who played less than 20 games, almost combined, actually, less than 30 games combined, to be holding up our defense. But that's exactly what they did. Massive credit to them. They were fantastic. Max Holmes didn't do a lot with those 20 disposals. Tom Atkins, not the same level of output. Plenty of defensive pressure, lots of tackles. He worked his tagging role well. Got a few clearances, but not quite of the same heights that we've seen recently. Still a very good game from him. I mentioned Connor O'Sullivan a moment ago. Jack Bowes kept on fighting, did everything he could. Mark O'Connor was pretty solid at different stages, and of course, keep getting on the scoreboard himself. Sam de Koning, the lesser of the de Konings on the ground, but still performed quite well in the key defensive post. Didn't give much away. Did have mark of the year contender taken on him, though. He's not going to like seeing that. That said, he managed to get a smile at the time. That's all you can do, right? When a little bloke who's about 170 centimeters climbs all over the top of you, a big 200 centimeter key defender and ruckman. Is what it is, right? Jeremy Cameron, kicked 4 goals too, but still there's a bit of stink around Jeremy Cameron at the moment. He's not firing on all cylinders right now, but 4-goal output might be just what the doctor ordered to really get him up and about. Fingers crossed that's the case. Mark Blitzarves stepped up when we needed him to. He was really quite solid. A pretty good 14 disposal game from him. Tom Stewart. Now, there was a scare with his... a lot of people were saying knee. I felt like it was a foot thing. Not an ankle, but a foot-related thing. Made me worry about plantar fascia when it actually happened. Seemed to run it off, but didn't have a great day. He's really had a pretty rough start to the season so far. This is not the Tom Stewart that we're used to, but hopefully he rediscovers that form soon. Paddy Dangerfield was well held, threatened on many occasions to blow the game apart. There was one play in the final term there where he burst through about 3 players, and there was no one that was going to be able to stop him. But just couldn't quite get the ball where it really counted. Ollie Dempsey did some important things with his limited number of disposals, and then you can see the tail here. The tail is just so long. Brad Close didn't do a lot and turned a few over at important stages. Jai Clark is still struggling when he comes to the top level. I'm starting to worry that there's a George Hall and Smith starter sort of feeling about him, where a fantastic VFL player but doesn't quite crack it at the top. Don't know if we're quite there yet, but I need to see his body continue to develop so he can bash and crash and clear the ball a bit more than he is. Tyson Stengel had lesser disposals than last week, but it was important at different stages. Mullen was... I've tried to defend him up to this point, but that was a pretty woeful performance from Oisin Mullen, and I can't defend him in this one. Ollie Wiltshire did some really creative things at different stages, struggled to get in the game. It was really high stakes, a tough first game for him, but he'll get better. He'll be better for it. Shannon Neal is really, really struggling now as a key forward. Just cannot get hands on the ball, and he's really doing himself a disservice with some easy marks that he's fumbling at the moment. It's not helping. Shannon Neal, we need better from you now, mate. Ollie Henry came on as the sub and didn't get much opportunity to really exert any sort of influence over the game. Contested really well on a few occasions, but for all the talk that's been going on about Ollie Henry, I don't think this particular game influences his future one way or another with the limited game time that he had. And obviously the overall performance of the team, he was getting failed by his teammates just as much as well. So I'll give him a pass in this one, but he's still right on the edge when it comes to form for a lot of people right now. And as much as I'm defending him, I still get it. When it comes to Carlton, and this is where a lot of the problems are, they accumulate the ball with ease, and they're a lot of the real key players for them. Walsh, Hewitt, Cripps just racked it up. Forward of centre for the most part too, which was really important. Elijah Hollands in particular, probably the best game he's played for the Blues up to this point. Cherry got a lot of the ball. Ollie Hollands got a lot of the ball. Sard, he got a lot of it, but didn't do a huge amount. Mitch McGovern playing on Jeremy Cameron and Shannon Neal at different stages. Like, he should not be accumulating the ball like he does as a key defender. Nick Haynes, the best game he's played for the Blues, he was threatening to break that intercept record over the course of the night. Not good enough to allow someone who's been woefully down on form since he's joined the club have a game like that. Tom de Koning was brilliant. Harry Mackay, his best game for the season, and really working his way back into it nicely. And of course, there's Charlie Curnow with his 3 goals as well. We just didn't shut enough of these blokes down. The only one that has a bad game is Zach Williams, and he injured his calf in the first quarter. Everyone else, maybe Jesse Motlop, you can toss in there as well, was really solid for the Blues. There was the team performance, whereas Geelong was getting carried by 5 or 6 players at best. A really, really atrocious effort from the Cats tonight. It's really disappointing. And we've got a pretty short turnaround again before we play the ladder leading Pies. So good luck to the boys. Hopefully you work hard during the week. Hopefully we can get Grind back and we get somewhere close to some good form, having us hopefully in good stead for a matchup against the ladder leaders. Thank you, everyone, for having tuned into this reaction video. It's been a pretty sobering one, considering the result. The Cats going down. Unfortunately, by 18 points against the Blues, despite threatening to pull a win out of the jaws of defeat. We didn't get it done. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube. Like this video, share it with your friends, get the content out there. We want to have some really high-quality, intelligent, rational, reasonable conversations about AFL football, and especially the Geelong Football Club. Thank you for joining me in this ride. If you haven't already, check out our Patreon. You can subscribe for 7 days and get free early access to all of the content we have there. There's exclusives and extended content there. You can sign up for 7 days. It's free, $5 or $6 a month. After that is what allows that content to continue to get delivered to your email inbox. You'll find me at Paul James Games on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram, The Hoops Crew at The Hoops Crew. And until next time, remain Geelong strong, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. We'll bounce back next week and hopefully steal a win against the Pies. I'll see you later.